Pregnant wife tied outside in 25 degrees Celsius blizzard all night. Neighbor who saved her was a secret billionaire. The wind howled like a beast that night, tearing through the dark countryside, carrying flakes of ice that stung like needles. The snow had started in the evening, soft, gentle, but by midnight it became a furious blizzard, swallowing everything in sight. Amid that white chaos, a young woman in her late 20s stood bound to a wooden post behind an old farmhouse, her thin nightdress soaked through, her skin pale and trembling. Her name was Lena, and she was 8 months pregnant. Every gust of wind cut through her like a blade, but it wasn't the cold that broke her, it was the betrayal. The man she loved, her husband, had tied her there himself. If you believe that kindness and second chances can still exist in this cruel world, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories, because sometimes, even in the darkest nights, humanity shines its brightest light. Lena had grown up believing that love could heal everything. When she met Aaron, a charming local businessman, she thought she had finally found her forever. He was everything she had dreamed of, handsome, attentive, and ambitious. For the first year of their marriage, he treated her like a queen. But when she became pregnant, something inside him changed. The tenderness vanished, replaced by suspicion and cruelty. He accused her of being unfaithful, convinced the child wasn't his. Lena cried, begged, and pleaded, but her words bounced off the wall of his growing paranoia. The man who once adored her began to see her as his enemy. That night, after another explosive argument, he dragged her out into the freezing storm. His eyes were wild, his breath heavy with alcohol. He shouted accusations that made no sense, his voice breaking under rage and delusion. Lena tried to explain, but the more she spoke, the angrier he became. He tied her wrists to the post near the barn, shouting that she could stay there until she confessed. The snow was already knee-deep, and the temperature had plummeted. She screamed for help, but the sound was lost in the howling wind. Then Aaron went inside, slamming the door behind him. Hours passed. The world turned white. Lena's body shook uncontrollably, her fingers numb and blue, her lips cracked and bleeding. She could barely breathe, every inhale a stab of icy pain. Her unborn baby moved weakly inside her belly, a desperate, fluttering reminder of life clinging to her. She prayed silently for strength, for mercy, for anyone to find her before it was too late. The sky was dark, but somewhere far away, through the storm, a faint light moved. A truck. The driver was Michael. To everyone in the small town, he was just the quiet man who lived at the end of the road, a reclusive mechanic who minded his own business. No one knew that he was actually the heir to one of the largest conglomerates in the country, a billionaire who had walked away from wealth and fame after losing his wife and daughter in a tragic car accident years ago. He had come here to disappear, to find peace in silence. But that night, as he drove back from a late supply run, something pulled his attention to the flicker of movement behind the snow-covered fence. He stopped his truck, got out, and fought his way through the storm until he saw her, a woman tied to a post, nearly frozen. He didn't think. He ran to her, untying the ropes with trembling hands. Her skin was like ice, her breathing shallow. He wrapped her in his thick jacket, lifted her into his arms, and carried her to his truck. The storm roared around them, but he didn't stop until they reached his small cabin at the edge of the forest. There, he lit a fire, covered her with blankets, and tried to warm her hands between his. She was barely conscious, whispering incoherent words about her baby and forgiveness. Michael stayed up all night tending to her, feeding her warm water drop by drop, massaging her limbs to bring back circulation. By morning, she opened her eyes, weak but alive. When he told her she was safe, she began to cry, not the quiet tears of pain, but the desperate sobs of someone who had been reborn. She clutched her stomach, whispering a prayer of gratitude for her unborn child. In the days that followed, Michael learned her story piece by piece. He didn't ask too many questions, he simply listened. Lena told him about Aaron's transformation, the accusations, the fear that had haunted her for months. She told him how she had lost everyone, her parents, her friends, her faith. Michael's heart, which had been silent for years, began to stir again. He saw in her the same brokenness he had once carried. And slowly, without realizing it, he began to care, not just as a rescuer, but as someone who wanted her to live, to truly live. When Aaron found out she was gone, he assumed she had run away. He didn't bother looking, but small towns have eyes everywhere, and within a week, word spread that Lena was staying with Michael. Gossip filled the air, ugly, cruel rumors. People whispered that she had moved on too fast, that she was ungrateful. Michael ignored it. He took her to the hospital, made sure she got the best prenatal care, and even contacted a private lawyer to prepare for her protection. It was then that Lena discovered who he really was. The quiet mechanic was actually Michael Rains, the missing heir to the Rains Group, a man who had disappeared after tragedy struck his family. At first, Lena didn't know how to react. She was overwhelmed, confused, even afraid that he might pity her. But Michael was patient. He told her that money didn't change who he was, it only gave him a way to help her start over. Together, they planned a quiet future, one free from fear, from control, from pain. For the first time in years, Lena smiled without trembling. One snowy morning, weeks later, she went into labor. The storm that day was fierce, almost as if nature itself wanted to test her one more time. Michael drove her to the hospital through blinding snow, holding her hand the entire way. Hours later, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl. When the nurse placed the child in her arms, Lena broke down. The baby's tiny cry was the sound of victory, of life refusing to surrender. Aaron showed up days later, his arrogance gone, replaced by shame. He begged for forgiveness, but Lena didn't answer with anger. She simply told him that some wounds heal only when you stop reopening them. He left quietly, and she never saw him again. Months passed, and the world around her slowly bloomed again. Michael became part of her little family, helping raise her daughter as his own. He never asked for recognition or gratitude, he just wanted to see her smile. Their bond deepened in silence, built on trust and shared pain. By the next winter, they had moved to a small home by the lake, where Lena would watch her daughter play in the snow, the same snow that once tried to take her life but instead led her to the man who saved it. Some say fate is cruel, but sometimes cruelty is only the disguise of destiny. Lena learned that night that even in the coldest blizzards, warmth can find you if you keep believing. And Michael, once a man who had lost everything, found new purpose in giving someone else a reason to live. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support helps bring more real, emotional stories of courage, love, and redemption to life. Speech Balloon Special Request. Comment below, do you believe that people who've lost everything can still find love again?